In this video we'll delve into the origins of Christmas, which is yet another festival borrowed from the religion of Babylon, known as the Mystery Religion and sometimes referred to as Mystery Babylon. Best place to start is with the actual word Christmas. Christmas is derived from Christ Mass. The word Mass means death sacrifice. In the Catholic tradition, the Mass is the ceremonial slaying of Jesus, over and over, followed by the eating of his flesh and the drinking of his blood. It's got nothing to do with birth. It's an act of sacrifice, followed by cannibalism. The winter solstice festival, from which our Christmas is borrowed, is the celebration of the birth of Tammuz or Nimrod, the original sun god. In ancient mythology, it is believed that when Nimrod died, his spirit went to be with the sun. A ray of the sun came and impregnated Semiramis, his wife on earth. Nimrod, the sun god, was then reborn as Tammuz, and what better time to do this than during the winter solstice, when the sun itself was being reborn. Semiramis, also known as Ishtar, or Queen of Heaven, or Ashtoreth, or even Virgin Mother, claimed that during the winter solstice an evergreen tree would grow up overnight from a dead stump in Babylon, and that Nimrod would secretly return at the same time each year to leave gifts on the tree. It seems that in reality Nimrod was actually killed by his grand-uncle Shem, son of Noah, as punishment for starting a new religion apart from God. This stopped the new mystery religion in its tracks for a while, until it was reborn, just as Nimrod was reborn as Tammuz, in several ancient cultures by different names and different traditions. It is common knowledge that Jesus was not born on Christmas Day. For example, the ancient Jewish shepherds do not have their sheep out to pasture in the middle of winter, as it is way too cold. In fact, the day was determined in 351 AD when Pope Julius I ruled that December the 25th was the official date of his birth. This was so the pagans of that day wouldn't have to give up their festivals when they became Catholic, or most of their other beliefs for that matter. Here are a few of the pagan celebrations and beliefs that occurred at that same time. The Roman celebration of Saturnalia was held between December the 17th to the 23rd. It was a feast devoted to the dedication of the temple of the god Saturn. It was very popular and was marked by tomfoolery and reversal of social roles in which slaves and masters switched places. This eventually led to our tradition of wearing crowns during Christmas dinner. The celebrations included a school holiday and giving and making of small presents. It was known as a time to eat, drink and be merry. The customary greeting for the occasion was Yo Saturnalia, this being a Latin word derived from ho, or praise. Somebody would masquerade as a king dressed in red robes, symbolic of Saturn. Various types of evergreens were used as decoration for public places. Children were given clay dolls which represented human sacrifices which had been made to Saturn in the past. The Roman celebration of the birthday of Sol Invictus was held on December the 25th. It was instituted after Saturnalia in 274 AD by the Roman Emperor Aurelian, and a lot of the customs of Saturnalia were transferred to this day. December the 25th was the first day after the winter solstice, with the first detectable lengthening of daylight hours. Thus the sun was believed to be reborn. Jacob Bar Salibi, writing in the 12th century, noted that pagans worshipped the rebirth of the sun, in which they kindled lights in token of festivity, and Christians took part in these festivities. Accordingly, the leaders of the church perceived that Christians had a leaning to this festival and solemnized that day as the date of Jesus' birth. We're now going to examine a few of our Christmas traditions and sayings and tie them in with a hodgepodge of pagan beliefs and practices. The Christmas tree itself is an evergreen tree. As an evergreen, it represents life during the middle of winter. While we have mentioned its position in relation to Nimrod, the tree was extensively used in later traditions. In some, it was loaded with gifts and set on fire to appease the gods. The Druids tied apples to the branches to thank the god Odin, chief god in Germanic traditions, and also hung lighted candles from them to honour the sun god. Fire, bonfires, lightning, burning logs, candles, and the worship of the sun god go hand in hand in ancient traditions. As mentioned, fire was used in human sacrifices to pagan gods, and thus was probably the precedent to these traditions. Thus, Christmas balls are representative of the sun, and thus the sun god, and Christmas lights are representative of the candles used in the past to worship gods or keep evil at bay. It is also the basis for lighting candles on Christmas Eve. It is believed that Saint Boniface in the 8th century found that tree worship was so widespread that he told his newly converted to cut them down and put them in their houses as a symbol of their new belief in Christ. There is also a probable reference in the King James Bible referring to the worship of trees. In Jeremiah 10 verse 1 it says, "Do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Don't be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them. Their customs of the peoples are futile. For one cuts a tree from the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen, with the axe. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers, so that it will not topple. They are upright like a palm tree, and they cannot speak." Note that the palm tree was used in equivalent Egyptian traditions. The wreath itself is an offshoot of the tree and represents the never-dying sun and its orbit. Adonis, who is from Semitic, which was then incorporated into Greek religious tradition, is closely related to Tammuz, Baal, and Osiris. He is an annually renewed, ever-youthful vegetation god, a life, death, rebirth deity, who is brought back to life by a serpent. Thus the symbolism of a snake-encircled tree, from which emerged an evergreen tree. Attis, a Phrygian god, was worshipped with a pine tree decked out in gold and silver. Yuletide, from Northern Europe, represents the 12 days of Christmas, which runs from the 25th to the 6th of January, also known as the Epiphany in Catholic tradition. The 6th of January is when Armenians celebrate Christmas. It is rooted in the celebration of the birth of Aeon, the god of eternity, at his annual celebration on the 6th of January. The declaration was made on that day. On this day and this hour the Virgin has given birth to Aeon. How well did that pagan tradition fit into the birth of Jesus Christ, and how easy was it for the Catholic Church to Christianize such pagan practices? To this day, the Eastern Church still hold to the 6th of January as the birth of Jesus Christ. Throughout these 12 days, a giant candle or Yule log was burned. Its primary role was to bring prosperity and to ward off danger. An expose on Christmas wouldn't be complete without Santa Claus. While tradition ties him to St. Nicholas, his real origins come from elsewhere. The modern image of Santa Claus is courtesy of Coca-Cola, who used the image in an advertising campaign in 1931. His red and white suit is derived from the colours of Coca-Cola. The traditions that surround him are a mix-match of different religious traditions. Woden, or Odin, the chief or sun god in the Germanic tradition, was a bringer of sunshine and gifts, similar to the tradition surrounding Nimrod in Babylon. In this myth, Woden was hung on the tree of life and wisdom, with a raven on each side. He was lanced by a spear and rose from the dead. Sacrificial gifts were to be left for Sleipnir, his white horse. He also dragged his evil slave Eckhart behind him on a chain. This morphed into St. Nicholas, portrayed as a white-haired man riding a white horse in the skies, with his slave the Dark Helper, who used to scare women and children into doing good. Santa is portrayed as coming down the chimney, which associates his actions with fire and by extension the sun. Odin is closely related to the midwinter celebration of Yule, and one of his many names means Yule figure. La Befana is from Italian folklore and was derived from the Roman goddess Strenia, who presided over the New Year's gifts. She is believed to fill the children's socks with candy and present it as presents if they were good, or a lump of coal if they were bad. The children's family typically left a small glass of wine and a plate with a few morsels of food for La Befana. She entered the house through the chimney on the 6th of January. The Norse or Scandinavian god Thor also had many similarities with Santa. He was known as a friendly, jovial, fat old man with a long beard. His element was fire and his colour red. He drove a chariot drawn by 2 white goats, Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder. He lived in the far north, in Thrudheim, among the icebergs. The fireplace in every home was sacred to him, and he is said to come down the chimney in his element, fire. Santa Claus comes from the Dutch Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas comes from the phrase claws of the cinders, which was the Dutch name for the good god Thor, as he was singed when he came down the chimney. Anglo-Saxons had an elderly man dressed in furs, visiting people during winter. He was treated as Old Winter or King Frost, with food and drinks. People believed that if they treated him well, that he would take away the bad spirit of winter. This led to the images of Father Christmas in Anglo-Saxon heritage. In the 1900s, a clearer picture of St. Nicholas or Santa Claus was developed based upon the images and traditions of the gods Thor, Odin and King Frost. These gods are again based on older traditions until one finds a trail leading back to Nimrod, the original sun god who was said to reappear in the winter solstice bearing gifts. The religion of Babylon, or Mystery Babylon, once again is found to be the source of many of our Christian traditions. So what are we to do? Do we celebrate the fact that a pagan tradition has been Christianised, thus allowing many people to recognise that the baby Jesus is ingrained into our culture? Or do we mourn the compromise of Christianity with paganism and lament the connection between Jesus, paganism and consumerism? I'll leave that up to you to decide.